Smoke rose from the horizon like a devil's banner, black and furious against the washed-out sky. Mae Hartley squinted past the brim of her weather-beaten hat, spurring her horse into a gallop. She didn't wait to wonder what kind of hell awaited on the other side of the ridge. In the wild plains, hesitation got you killed. As she crested the bluff, the town below lay in ruin. Red Brush Creek was burning. Flame licked the thatched roofs, windows belched smoke, and the air howled with gunfire. She could smell scorched pine and blood before she even reached the main road. Mae slid off her horse, rifle already in hand. Her boots hit the ground hard, kicking up dirt and soot. Her eyes darted, movement to the left. A settler boy no older than 10 crouched behind a barrel, wide-eyed, clutching a revolver too big for his hands. Mae ducked beside him. "You know how to shoot that thing?" she asked, voice rough as dry gravel. He shook his head, trembling. "Then run. Fast as you can. Don't look back." She didn't watch him leave. Another shot rang out and she rolled forward, firing into the alley where the muzzle flash had come from. A scream. Silence. The chaos was creeping closer to the saloon and general store, where most of the settlers had holed up. Mae pressed forward, weaving between broken carts and shattered glass, every breath hot and acrid. It wasn't the first time she'd seen a town gutted. It wouldn't be the last. But Red Brush was different. It was where she got her first saddle, where old Missy Odell once taught her to stitch a wound on a dead chicken. The kind of nothing town you didn't think twice about until it was too late. She caught a glimpse of one of them, a Comanche rider, face painted, his horse kicking up dust. He disappeared behind the church like a shadow swallowed by dusk. The settlers would call it savagery, but Mae had learned long ago that war didn't wear just one face. The sound of a groan stopped her. Behind the overturned water trough, something moved. She raised her rifle, crept forward. Then she saw him, bare-chested, bleeding from a gash across his side, trying to crawl away. He was young, no more than 20, with long black hair matted in sweat and blood. A Comanche, judging by the silver discs on his belt and the bow lying shattered beside him. His dark eyes met hers, defiant even as pain twisted his face. Mae's finger hesitated on the trigger. She remembered her father's voice, gruff, broken. "Mercy is a blade, Mae. It cuts both ways." The Comanche spat at her feet. "Go on," he rasped in broken English. "Do it." She didn't. She knelt instead, rifle still in one hand, the other pressing against the wound at his ribs. He flinched violently. "Stop fighting," she growled. "You'll bleed out before I can finish deciding what a fool I am." She tore fabric from her sleeve and pressed it to the wound. Blood soaked through fast. He cursed her in his own tongue, but his voice weakened with every word. She worked quickly, fingers steady from years of stitching cuts on cattle and worse. She didn't know why she was doing this, only that the longer she looked at him, the more she saw something too familiar to shoot. In the distance, hoofbeats. The town had begun to rally. Someone would be coming. Mae swore under her breath. She grabbed the boy by his arm. He tried to jerk away, but his strength was gone. "Sorry," she muttered. "This is gonna hurt like sin." She dragged him toward her horse, tied nearby under a scorched sycamore. He tried to fight weakly, but she slung him over the saddle like a sack of potatoes and climbed up behind him. The sky was choking with smoke now, but her direction was clear. The hills, the mines, the one place no one would think to look yet. As she rode hard from the burning town, shots rang out behind her. She didn't stop to see who was firing. Her horse knew the way. Dust clawed at her skin. Ash stung her eyes. The boy moaned once, then fell unconscious against her shoulder. By nightfall, they reached the entrance of the old Evers mine, long abandoned and hidden by a thicket of thorn brush. Mae dismounted, pulled the Comanche off with a grunt, and half dragged him into the cave's mouth. The air inside was cold, damp, and stank of mold and rusted iron. But it was safe, for now. She lit a lantern, propped him against a rock, and took a long look. "You're either the dumbest choice I've made," she said aloud, "or the most dangerous." His eyes fluttered open, glassy with fever. He coughed, winced, then said something she didn't understand. His tone was mocking, his body broken. Mae dug into her satchel for water, a strip of jerky, and her last clean bandage. She cleaned his wound with shaking hands, the heat of the day finally leaving her limbs. As she wrapped the cloth, she found herself murmuring, half to him, half to herself. I lost my folks in a raid. You probably lost yours in one too. Maybe by the same hands. Hell of a world. The Comanche made no reply. He just stared at her, something unreadable flickering in his gaze. Mae sat back against the cavern wall, rifle in her lap, lantern light dancing on the stone. Outside, night had settled in thick and dark. The town would be awake by now, talking, angry. The girl who saved a savage. She didn't know how long she sat there, eyes on the flickering shadows. Eventually, he slept. His chest rose and fell slow and heavy. Mae didn't let herself sleep. Not yet. She'd made a choice. The kind you didn't come back from. Her fingers traced the edge of her rifle's grip. Somewhere in Red Brush Creek, they were already putting her name to posters. She'd committed no crime. But in this land, mercy was the greatest betrayal of all. She looked down at the boy again. His name was still a mystery, but his face, it was carved into her mind now. Blood and all. Outside, a coyote howled low and long, as if warning the stars themselves. Mae didn't flinch. If you're going to hate me, she whispered, at least live long enough to do it properly. And the lantern burned on. The cave walls echoed with every drip of moisture, every shift of fabric, every faint breath. Mae sat cross-legged, sharpening her blade in the low orange light. Across from her, the Comanche, bare-chested, feverish, yet still alive, watched her in silence. His wound had begun to clot, a raw pink line slashed across his ribs, but infection was still a coin toss. He didn't speak much, but his eyes never wandered far from her rifle. Mae broke the silence first, tossing a wrapped piece of salted rabbit in his direction. He caught it barely and stared. You eat or you die, she muttered. Simple choice. He didn't thank her. Didn't need to. He tore into it like a man chewing through pride. When he was done, he leaned back and let out a long, pained exhale. You got a name? Mae asked, cleaning the knife on her pants leg. Silence. She tried again, tapping her chest. Mae. A pause. He tapped his own. Toka. Mae nodded. Toka, she repeated, testing the sound like a bullet's weight. You're welcome. By the way. Toka grunted. Whether in thanks or annoyance, she couldn't tell. Outside, the wind shifted. Cold. Dry. Carrying with it the scent of smoke still lingering from Red Brush Creek's ruin. Mae knew they didn't have long. Folks would talk. And in a town where lines were drawn with bullets, saving a Comanche boy made her an enemy of her own blood. By morning, she was proved right. 3 riders gathered at the edge of town, eyes scanning the horizon like hawks. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a crooked jaw and a voice like crushed glass, nailed a sheet to the saloon side. The paper fluttered, catching the light. Wanted, Mae Hartley, for treason against the people of Red Brush. Dead or alive. They didn't waste time with trials. They never did. The bounty was high enough to make devils out of decent men. One of those men was Holt McCready, Mae's old flame-turned-deputy. Once, he taught her how to track in the snow. Now he rode with 2 bounty hunters, Boone and Lacey, brothers by blood, sadists by trade. Holt spat on the ground, eyes fixed on the hills. She'll head for the mines, he muttered. Always like places full of ghosts. Back in the cave, Mae felt the shift. Not in the air, but in her gut. She stood, checked the rifle's load, and stared into the dark tunnel leading deeper into the earth. We can't stay, she said. They'll come. Toka shifted on the blanket, his breath thin. You ride, she asked. He grimaced, tried to stand. His legs buckled. Mae caught him before he hit the stone. Right. We walk. They left the cave before the sun rose, slipping through shadows and thorn brush. Mae moved with practiced silence. Toka limped beside her, sweat beading on his brow, but he didn't complain. Not once. By midday, they reached the canyon basin, a tangle of sandstone and mesquite trees. Mae paused, checking the horizon. Nothing yet. But she knew the silence was only the breath before the bullet. Toka leaned against a boulder, wheezing softly. "You should have left me," he said, voice rough but clear now. "Maybe," Mae replied. "But then I'd be stuck talking to myself." He cracked something close to a smile, then coughed blood into his hand. Mae's jaw tightened. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a pouch of dried herbs. "Chew this," she said, offering the bitter clump. "Heals fever. Or so the woman who raised me claimed. Might just make you spit green for a week." Toka took it wordlessly. He chewed. They rested only an hour, then moved again, deeper into the wild. The cliffs grew taller, casting long shadows that crawled with the sun. Somewhere nearby, a hawk shrieked. The sound echoed like a warning. That night, they found shelter beneath an outcrop. The stars were sharp above them, piercing the black like 1,000 judgmental eyes. Mae built a small fire and leaned back against her saddle, watching flames dance. Toka sat across from her, silent again. But this time, there was no tension in his shoulders, only exhaustion. "You have family?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Sister. Younger." Mae didn't press. He didn't offer more. She tossed a twig into the fire. Sparks rose like tiny ghosts. "I had a brother," she said after a while. "Tom. Got shot stealing bread from a camp outside Dodge. They hanged him for it. Said it was justice." Toka said nothing, but his eyes met hers. That was enough. Sometime after midnight, he spoke. "Why did you help me?" Mae looked at the fire, then at the stars, then back to her hands. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Maybe because you look too young to die. Maybe I just got tired of watching the world burn from both ends." He nodded once, like he understood, but there was no peace left for either of them. At dawn, the bounty hunters found their trail. Holt knelt over a broken patch of brush, running fingers over crushed stems. "She's close." They moved fast. Mae felt it before she heard it, the distant clink of hooves against rock. She rose instantly, grabbing her gear, shaking Toka awake. "We move." Now. They ran, not with speed, but with desperation. Mae kept the shadows, ducking through scrub and low gullies, her senses stretched thin. But the riders were good. Boone and Lacey were bloodhounds. The first shot cracked through the morning like a whip. Mae ducked, rolled behind a boulder, dragged Toka down beside her. "You see him?" she asked. Toka nodded toward the ridge. Two silhouettes, guns drawn. No sign of Holt yet. That worried her more than the bullets. Mae took a breath, counted. 1, 2, 3, then fired. The bullet clipped Boone's shoulder, sending him spinning behind cover. Toka reached for the bow Mae had scavenged for him, its string newly tied. His hand shook, but the arrow flew true. Lacey yelped and dropped behind a bush, blood spilling from his thigh. Mae grabbed Toka's arm. "Move." They sprinted for the lower ridge. The hunters regrouped. A chase began. It was brutal terrain. Thorn vines ripped Mae's arms, dust clogged her throat. Behind them, Holt's voice rang out. "Mae, stop this madness. Ain't too late." She almost stumbled. The voice hit harder than the bullet that whizzed past her boot. Toka pulled her forward. A canyon yawned ahead, steep walls, dry riverbed below. No cover. No escape. "We go down," Mae said. Toka looked at her like she was insane. "Better a broken leg than a bullet in the spine." She snapped and jumped. They tumbled hard. Dust, stone, pain. Mae rolled, came up coughing, scraped raw, rifle still in hand. Toka landed worse. He groaned, dragging himself upright, face gray with fatigue. They hobbled into a narrow cut in the canyon wall. A slot barely wide enough for two bodies. Just enough space to hide. Footsteps above. Mae held her breath. Boone's voice echoed faintly. They went down. Blood trails fresh. Hold again. We end this quiet. No heroics. They didn't come down right away. That meant they were setting a trap. Mae leaned her head back against the rock, breath shallow. She looked at Toka. He was fading again, eyelids heavy. "You don't get to die," she whispered fiercely. "Not yet." She peeked out once, saw the shadow of a rifle glint on the canyon rim. Then nothing. Only silence. Mae knew that silence. It was a hunter's silence. the kind that came right before the kill. But this time, she wasn't running. She slipped a knife from her boot, handed it to Toka. "You wait for my shot. Then you move." He stared at the blade, then nodded. Mae stepped into the canyon light, rifle raised, and shouted, "Come get me, Holt." A pause. Then Holt's voice, sharp and broken. "Don't do this, Mae." She fired into the sky. The shot cracked like thunder. From the canyon rim, Lacey swore and fired back. Mae dove into cover, heart hammering. Gunfire erupted. The canyon rang like a war drum. When the dust cleared, two things were certain. Toka was gone, escaped into the rocks. And Mae had taken a bullet to the shoulder. She slumped against the canyon wall, blood warm down her arm, mouth dry as bone. Her vision blurred. But she smiled anyway. Because they chased her, not him. And sometimes, survival was just a matter of misdirection. Far off, a hawk cried overhead. Mae closed her eyes and listened. Wind screamed between the canyon walls like a banshee, dragging heat and dust through narrow veins of red rock. Mae Hartley blinked against the grit, arms stiff and wrapped in a blood-crusted bandage. The bullet had passed clean through, clean enough not to kill her, dirty enough to leave her shaking with fever by nightfall. She leaned against a sun-warmed boulder, teeth clenched as she shifted her shoulder. Toka crouched nearby, scanning the ridge. He'd been quiet since dragging her out of the slot canyon, face unreadable, but his eyes hadn't left her for long. "You should have run farther," Mae rasped. Toka didn't look at her. "Didn't owe you that." "Hell you didn't," she muttered, then chuckled dryly. "But I appreciate it." He finally turned, squinting against the sun. "You fight like a coyote with a broken leg." Mae snorted. "Better than dying like a dog in the dirt." They were hiding in the upper mouth of a crevice, known only to old trail whispers. Smugglers once used it, or maybe it was just a place the buzzards hadn't claimed yet. Either way, it was a temporary reprieve. Food was low, water lower, and she could feel the hunters behind them like smoke in her lungs. When night came, the desert turned cold as bone. Mae curled close to the fireless warmth of her saddle blanket, while Toka crouched in stillness nearby, watching the dark. She studied the scar on his cheek, small, pale, and shaped like a crescent moon. "How'd you get that?" she asked, voice soft, if only to fill the quiet. He hesitated. "Was 10. Tried to ride a wild pony bareback. She didn't like it." Mae smiled despite herself. "You lived?" "Barely. My sister laughed for a week." Mae rolled to her side, wincing. "Tell me about her." He didn't answer at first. But the silence wasn't cold this time. It was memory forming shape. She was called Sani, quiet but sharp. She knew plants, knew what healed and what killed. She said one day she'd teach the white men to stop being so afraid. Mae nodded. "And?" He stared into the dark. "They shot her 2 summers ago. Called her a thief. She was picking yarrow by the riverbank." The ache that bloomed in Mae's chest wasn't just for him. It was for her own ghost, too. "I used to think there were good sides and bad sides," she murmured. "Now I think maybe there's just pain wearing different hats." Toka looked at her then. "You think they'll stop chasing us?" Mae thought of Holt, of the way he'd called out her name like it still meant something, of Boone's wild eyes, of Lacey bleeding in the dirt. "No," she said, "but maybe we can outrun the worst of them." They moved again at dawn. The terrain ahead narrowed into flame-colored cliffs and deep ravines. This was the Canyon of Fire, a place the locals swore was cursed, where compasses spun and voices echoed too long. The name came from the way the rocks caught the sunlight. Every edge and rise lit up like embers. But for Mae, it was a bottleneck and a trap. If they passed through, there was freedom on the other side. A hidden creek, a trader's hut, a back trail to the southern line where no one gave a damn about redbrush law. But if they were caught inside, it'd be a tomb. By mid-morning, they reached the outer rim. Mae stopped, running her fingers along a petroglyph carved deep into the canyon face, spirals, animals, a handprint etched in stone. "My mother told me this was a place of voices," she said. Toka stepped beside her. "It's where people go to remember, or disappear." They climbed down slowly, shadows growing long as the sun rose behind the cliffs. Mae's shoulder throbbed with every jolt, and her vision swam at the edges. But she didn't let it show. Not when they were this close. They made camp behind a wall of brush near the canyon floor. Toka caught a lizard and roasted it with a heat stone technique Mae hadn't seen before. No fire, no smoke. Just stone and pressure and patience. "Old trick?" she asked. "Older than names," he said. She chewed the meat slowly, grateful for the taste of something warm. By dusk, they were almost clear of the canyon mouth. That's when the sound came. Hoofbeats. Slow, deliberate, echoing like thunder rolled in iron. Mae's blood turned to ice. Toka grabbed his bow, eyes already scanning the high walls. "They found us." It wasn't a question. From above, Holt's voice rang down like judgment. "Mae, last chance." She stepped into the canyon light, rifle raised but not pointed. "Don't suppose you came to talk?" Holt's face peered over the edge. "I came to give you a way out." Behind him, Boone grinned, bandaged arm in a sling, gun still steady. Lacey leaned on a crutch, sour-faced, but hungry for blood. "You're a traitor," Holt continued. "But I still remember the girl who brought me whiskey after I broke my leg falling off that dumyo. Let the savage go. Come home." Mae didn't lower her rifle. "I ever come home, Holt, it's in a box." His eyes hardened. "So be it." The first shot cracked the silence. Toka shoved Mae down just as a bullet sparked off stone beside her. Then came the return fire, short, fast, vicious. Toka's arrows flew silent as breath. One struck Lacey's leg again. The man howled and dropped. Mae rolled, sighted Boone, and fired. The shot took him in the shoulder. He fell back, cursing. Holt kept coming. The battle was chaos, a jagged, howling mess of dust and fire. Mae and Toka retreated deeper into the canyon, weaving between rock pillars, using every twist of terrain. Mae ducked, reloaded, fired again. She didn't know if she hit anyone, just knew they had to move. Then, a sudden silence. Mae leaned around a boulder, too fast. A figure lunged. Holt. He tackled her, driving her back hard against the stone. Her rifle clattered away. He pinned her, breath ragged. "You could have stayed," he growled. "Could have had a life." Mae spat blood, met his eyes. "Not at the price of my soul." She kneed him, grabbed a rock, and slammed it into his temple. He reeled. Toka was already there, bow raised. "No," Mae said, panting. "He's not worth it." Toka hesitated, then lowered the weapon. They left Holt there, breathing, bleeding, not dead. By the time they cleared the canyon's edge, the sun had dipped below the cliffs. A path stretched ahead, wide and quiet. Freedom. They didn't speak for a while, just walked. Eventually, Toka broke the silence. "You could have killed him." Mae nodded. "I've killed enough." He looked at her, and this time there was no distance in his gaze, only recognition. "What will you do now?" he asked. She glanced toward the southern trail. "Build something. Maybe a place where folks can be people, not enemies." Toka offered a faint smile. "That place exists?" Mae smirked. "Not yet." They kept walking, shadows long behind them. And somewhere far back, the canyon of fire burned with the memory of mercy. The gallows stood at the center of Redbrush Creek, like a splinter of judgment rising out of cracked earth. Rough-hewn, ugly, built fast in the wake of fear. The rope hung still in the dawn breeze, already looped, waiting. Mae Hartley's hands were bound behind her back, wrists red and raw. Dirt clung to her face, and her shoulder throbbed beneath the makeshift sling. A row of townsfolk lined the square, eyes hard with betrayal and silence. No one spoke. No one stepped forward. Sheriff Granger barked the order, voice hoarse from shouting over restless crowds the night before. "Bring her up." 2 deputies dragged her forward, boots scuffing against the plank steps. Mae didn't resist. She kept her chin high, blood dried at her temple from the blow that knocked her out when Holt finally caught up. She hadn't seen Toka since. "Mae Hartley," the sheriff began, holding a crumpled sheet of parchment like it meant something. "You stand accused of treason, of harboring and aiding a hostile enemy of the state, and of raising arms against lawful authority. Any last words?" She looked at the crowd. Faces she once helped patch up, drank with, danced with. Now all stone and stillness. A boy near the front, a boy she'd saved during the raid, looked down at his boots. Mae smiled slow and dry. "Yeah," she said. "You only hate what you're too scared to understand." The sheriff gave a nod. The executioner reached for the lever. A crack split the silence, a single gunshot. The rope above Mae's head snapped and fell limp. Gasps rang out before chaos erupted. Another shot hit the noose post, splintering wood. The crowd scattered. Screams echoed. Dust flared in every direction as horses charged in from the north, kicking up the red dirt like a storm. Mae dropped to her knees, stunned but alive, her hands still bound. A blur moved through the chaos. Toka, bow in hand, arrows flying with terrifying precision. He wore paint across his face now, not for war but for freedom, and behind him came others, Comanche warriors on horseback, and with them Mae's old mentor, Elias Carr, rifle in hand, coat flapping like a banner in the wind. Elias jumped down first, cutting Mae's bindings with a hunting knife. "Took your damn time getting hanged," he said. Mae blinked, breath ragged. "Missed your ugly face." "No time for flirting," Elias muttered. "We've got a town to not die in." Gunfire returned from the rooftops. Bounty hunters, deputies, townsfolk too far gone in their hate to stop and think. Mae grabbed a fallen rifle, loading even as blood dripped from her sleeve. "Let's end this," she said. The square turned into a battlefield. Toka rode circles around the outer edge, arrows flying in deadly rhythm. Mae moved through the center like a storm, ducking behind barrels, firing from the hip. A bullet grazed her thigh, but she kept going. Holt emerged from behind the jailhouse, shotgun in hand. He saw her and froze. Dust clung to his stubble, and sweat streaked his brow. "You're alive," he said, stunned. Mae raised her rifle. "You sound disappointed." "I tried to stop this," he said, stepping forward. "You aimed a gun at my back," she said, voice cold. "You don't get to pretend you didn't pull the trigger." "I didn't. Couldn't." Same difference. He looked away, eyes clouded. "This town's lost its damn mind." "Then maybe it's time we burned the rot out." She didn't shoot. Not him. Not then. Instead, she turned, fired at the gallows pulley where a sniper had taken position. Wood shattered, and the man fell screaming. Holt didn't follow her. By the time the last shot was fired, the sun had risen high enough to bleach the dust pale. Silence fell over Red Brush, broken, bruised, but still standing. The Comanche riders formed a quiet ring around the square, watching the townsfolk with wary eyes. No one spoke at first. Then Elias stepped forward, voice gruff but steady. "This is the woman you were ready to kill. Not because she hurt you, but because she showed mercy." Granger opened his mouth, but Mae raised a hand. She stood in the middle of it all, bloodied, exhausted, and unmistakably alive. "I didn't betray you," she said. "I reminded you of what decency looks like. You think killing a boy too hurt to fight back makes you safe? Makes you righteous." Some lowered their heads. Others shifted uneasily. "This town's been dying slow," she continued. "Not because of raiders or Comanche or lawlessness, but because we forgot that doing the right thing is supposed to cost something." She turned to Toka, who nodded once. "And if you're still too afraid to face what's different, fine. We'll leave. But one day, when your children ask who burned this town to ash, you look 'em in the eye and tell 'em it wasn't a Comanche that lit the match." Silence. A single breeze rolled through. Then a woman in the crowd, Missy Odell, stepped forward, dropped her rifle, and said, "She saved my son." Another man did the same. And another. One by one, weapons hit the dirt. Holt turned and walked away, without a word. By sunset, Mae and Toka stood at the edge of town, horses saddled, Elias beside them with a sack full of supplies slung over his shoulder. "South Trail's quiet," Elias said. "Reckon no one'll chase you for now." Mae nodded, adjusting her grip on the reins. "You coming?" "Nah. Got some ghosts here I still need to finish drinking away." She reached out, shook his hand. "Thanks for showing up. Always did like the way you caused trouble." Toka swung into his saddle. Mae followed, her wounds stitched but aching. As they rode, red brush shrank behind them, the gallows now a pile of broken timber and rope. They didn't speak for a long while. Then, as the sky turned pink and the first stars peeked out, Toka asked, "You still want that ranch?" Mae considered the question, eyes on the horizon. "I want a place where no one's scared to be who they are, where people don't have to bleed just to be seen." Toka nodded. "Then let's find it." They rode into the dusk, wind at their backs, the past behind them like smoke. And the fire didn't follow. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a hawk cried, sharp and high, and Mae smiled at the sound. A voice drifted into memory, soft and clear as the open plains. She broke no law but that of silence. In saving him, she saved herself. And maybe, just maybe, she showed us there's a path beyond hate. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. We reckon the Wild West still has stories worth telling.